In this video, we'll cover everything related to walls, from drawing walls, viewing wall properties, editing walls in 2D and 3D, and reviewing wall framing tools. To insert walls, you can do it in one or two ways. Go up to the Modeling tab, select Wall. You can also right mouse click and select Insert Wall. This brings up the wall dialog. The wall dialog is made up of several sections. You have your wall libraries, you have your wall types. In the middle, you have your layers, parameters for each of the layers. Over on the right, you can view the walls. The top is a 3D view. The bottom is a 2D top view. Selecting the Help button will open the user manual and show the wall dialog information. To access different wall types, you can do that under the wall libraries and wall types. If we close all these libraries, you can see we have exterior, interior, staggered, foundation, and other walls. Within those are categories related to exterior walls. In this case, let's go ahead and select framed walls. Once we select a framed wall, down below will be the different wall types that are in that library. Let's go ahead and select 2x6 exterior horizontal siding wall. Over in the middle, you see the layers. These are all the layers that are part of this wall type. We have siding, sheathing, framing, and drywall. Here's the material for each one. So, for example, we have siding, and that's using a horizontal siding, which is 6 inches wide, and that's the material code or material ID. You can hit the drop down or select the drop down and change that to a different material. Then you have your thickness to the right, the bottom height, and top height. Now the top height is the height of the wall that we set up, which is part of our 3D levels. If you recall from the previous video, we set up our wall height. So it's pulling that height from our 3D levels. The bottom height is the bottom of the wall. And you'll see some examples where we have a bottom height, which is minus 12 inches. If you recall from the previous video, we set up a floor system that was 12 inches deep. So the bottom of the wall, if you look at our 3D image here, is extending the siding down 12 inches to cover the 2x12 system that we had in place. So if this was let's say a concrete slab, 4-inch slab, then this bottom height would be 4 inches dropped. So it'd be a negative 4 inches. You can also alter this manually if you wanted to. So let's just say we want to go minus 6 inches instead of 12. You can see that in our window, it modified that distance. So now it's only 6 inches dropped. The thickness is a material that's being applied. That usually doesn't need to be altered. You also see the bottom height for the sheathing. If we zoom in, that is actually extending 3/4 of an inch. Whoops, it's a little too close. It's extended up 3/4 of an inch. And then at the top, we have it set up 3/8 of an inch drop down. So it's a little short. So if we zoom in, you'll see that that is dropped down below the wall height. Like I said, under materials, you can go through and change the material by hitting the drop down and selecting a different material. Now, I don't suggest changing a wall that's already been set up as a 2x6 framed wall. Our wall type is 2x6 exterior bearing. I do not suggest going in and changing that to a different wall width. If you need like a 2x4 or a different wall width, then go into the library and select a wall width that matches what you're looking for. That'll just lead to some confusion in the software and make things a little bit more difficult. I would just maintain the width that's assigned to this wall type. In addition to editing the material, you can also add additional layers. So let's select the sheathing, right click, you insert to the outside, insert on the inside of the wall. You can split, which we'll cover that here shortly. Delete. You can rearrange them by moving them up or down. We'll set some framing rules, which we'll cover that as well. So let's say we want to add some more sheathing to the outside. So we'll select insert, and we've just now added another piece of sheathing here. If we look at our 3D window, you can see that there are two pieces there. Now, if one was, let's say we change this one to a little bit thicker material. Let's say we go 3/4 of an inch of 4x8 sheet. It's prompting us if we want to load the framing tool from the library, because there's a framing tool associated with the sheathing. So yes, we will load that framing tool specific to that piece of sheathing. Now you'll see that we have a little bit wider 3/4 inch piece there. And if we wanted to move that to the front, we can move that up. And now you can see that it has been transferred over to the other side and rearranged. Let's just go ahead and remove that 3/4 inch piece, select it, right click, and we'll delete it from there. Let's zoom out here a little bit and show you what else we can do. We'll go in and let's say we want to split our siding, and we want to add a stone at the bottom and leave the top half siding. We can split this. Let's go to siding, right click, hit split, and it automatically put in a distance 51 inches from bottom to the middle there. So let's go ahead and let's say we want that to be 36. So we can just type in 36 inches. Oops, not 46, 36. And you'll see that the other section was automatically updated to show that to go from 36 up to the top height. Now we can go in and take that bottom section, change that to a different type of material. Let's say we want to go up to, actually, let's go to the bottom, just go to stone. Scroll down to stone. And now if you see the window, you can rotate that a little bit, get a better view. You can see now that we have the siding broken into stone, the top half is siding there. So if you made a mistake or you want to reset your walls, you can go ahead and go back to the wall type that you selected, right click and select Restore Default. And that will remove all the modifications that we just made. And down in the parameters section, usually you don't have to make any modifications here, but if you want to change, let's say the color fill or add a different color to a specific layer, maybe you want to add a different color to the drywall or to the siding, you can just go in and select, let's just say siding, we'll select that. If we want to add a color fill, just click the little color fill and maybe let's just put red here. Now if we zoom in, you'll see that the siding has a red color fill applied to it. The other thing you could do for your wall framing, if you select wall, you can apply a color fill, and there's also different defaults already. So maybe we want to make a, say, orange. Now you can see that it's been modified to an orange color fill there. Other than that, you probably wouldn't make any more modifications down here. I'm going to go ahead and reset that. Again, restore those values, go back to the default. Let's go ahead and cover the framing rules. We need to set up some rules for how the wall is actually going to be framed if we're going to panelize these walls. So to do that, we'll need to go into the wall framing tool specifically for framing layers. So we'll select the framing layer, right click, select framing tools. Bring this up here. In the framing tools dialog, we have the framing tools library shown at the top, and then several tabs contain all the rules for this specific wall framing. The wall framing tool that's being assigned to this wall type is the exterior 2x6 bearing. If we hit this drop down, you'll see that there are different tools that can be applied to this wall. We're using the generic framing, but you can see that there are also tools that have a specific grade of framing applied to it, but we'll leave it at the default for now. Now this is the library that this tool is stored, but there are other libraries, and once you get into customizing your own software, you may have your own library listed here that will store your own tools, but that's for another time. So let's leave this under wall framing. Under the general tab, we have the framing name. This is the name of the framing tool that's being applied. So exterior 2x6 B for bearing. We have the panel ID. This is the ID that will be assigned to the panel. The system is set up to add the level number in place of the 1. And also the panel ID or the panel label can also be overridden when we start to generate wall panels. So you can create a different label scheme at that time. We have the framing detail that's being applied. This is an exterior wall load bearing. If it was a different type of wall, it would have a different type of detail applied to it, but this is correct. The lineal foot material code, that is used for when you generate lineal foot material estimates. So you can create material lists without generating wall framing. This is, again, for lineal footage. Not as accurate, but if you need to create a materials list without doing the framing. This is the code that it uses for this specific wall type when generating materials lists. You can specify the corner details. We have exterior corners, interior corners. It's using a CLC detail for both. You can change them by selecting the select button. Here you'll see the different corner details. Let's see, it's using a CLC, so right now it's defaulting to the California L. If you want to select a different detail, just select the green diamond there and highlight that. But we'll leave it as is. And again, that's the same for interior corners. We have also T-intersection details for load-bearing walls and non-load-bearing walls. It's using an LSL detail type. So if we hit the select button there, you can see that it's using a ladder backer on edge. That's the LSL detail. But if you want to use a flat ladder blocker, there's an LB detail, or a different type of detail. We've got vertical backers with 3 vertical blocks or 4 vertical blocks. Let's just close out of that. We have end details for the panel seams. It's using a side FL. Same with the free ends. So between 2 panels, it'll apply this detail. At the end of a panel, while there is no adjacent panel, it'll apply that same detail. Again, we'll hit the select, and these are all the different end details. It's using a single stud side FL, but if you want a double, triple, or a different detail, you can select that. Panel edge gap. If you want to add a little tolerance between the panel edges, hit the drop down and select one of the presets there. Under the studs panel, you can select the stud types. Right now we're using the generic library, so it's 2x6S for studs. There's a select button to select a different library or different material, quantity, and copy. So if we select a different type of stud and we want to apply it to all the other settings, hit the copy to automatically apply it so you don't have to go through each field and alter the material. Let's hit the select button. Here you'll see the piece properties. We're using the generic lumber library, but there's several others that you can use. So in this case, we've got a 2x6 S for stud, sill, block, cripple, header, jack, and plate. If you want to select material by grade, you can go and select a different library. We have lumber, Doug for 1, Doug for 2, various others in here. So let's just say we select Doug for 2. You can then see that the grade is added to the description or to the code. So a 2x6 Doug for number 2 is applied. Let's hit cancel and continue with the just generic. You can also specify material for the studs at sheet seams. You can also specify a quantity, stud spacing. You can select the stud start from. Right now it's defaulted to left, but if you want to change it and have it start from the right, start from the center. You can also have it start from left and right so that they meet in the middle. Free will evenly space the studs in the wall. If you check under trusses, it'll add a stud under any truss that is resting on the wall. Center stud. If you select center under the stud start from, you can have the option of inserting a single stud at the center or a double stud in the center, which may be useful for a gable wall situation. Under the plates and blocks tab, here we can set up the top plate detail. It's using a TPL detail. If we select that, you can see our options here. We're using the TPL detail, which is either standard 1, 2, or 3 plates. You can add the details that show a beam at the bottom of the plates and a beam with a sill underneath. Again, select the diamond to activate that detail. We'll just hit cancel and leave it at the default. You can specify the binder material that connects the 2 panels together. You can also select the top plate and the beam material. For top plate, you can specify the quantity of plates. You can also select the bottom plate detail. So if we hit select, you have 3 options here: standard, single, beam. and a double beam. Close out, leave the default. Select the material for the sill plate and the quantity, and the material for the additional sill plates. You can also specify the blocking. There's horizontal and end blocking. If you select horizontal blocking, that will be placed the entire length of the wall. End blocking will be placed at the first and last stud bays. So we've got 2x6 blocking. If you want to change that, you can go through and select, again, different material. Heights. Right now it's only showing at one location. If you want to add the height, type that in. Or if you want to have multiple heights, you can type in the height and space in between. So in this case, it would add horizontal blocking at 40, 60, and 80 inches along the wall. You can also specify the type of blocking. So normal solid blocking will be flat blocking. If you use the flush options, the blocking will be on edge. So blocking on the inside face, flush blocking on the outside face, or flush blocking on both sides. Under the Openings tab, you can select the sill and cripples, the quantity of sills. Now there are 3 header lengths that you can set up. There's header 1, header 2, and header 3. And the way how this works is from a length of 0 to 48, it will use this header material and these jack and king settings. If the length is between 48 and 96, it will use the header number 2 settings for jack, kings, and this header. And anything that exceeds over 96 inches will use header number 3 settings. You can select the header detail. Let's hit, right now it's using WD header drop -2. Let's hit the select button. And here are your header options. So it's using the drop -2. If I zoom in, it is the double headers on each inside and outside face. If you want to use a different type of header detail, you can go through and select the diamond and apply a different detail. Let's close out of that. Same thing for the header 2 detail and the header drop 3 detail. You can go through and select those details. Right now, each one of them is using a 2x10 header, but if you want to alter that, let's say you want to have the first header, maybe you want that to be a 2x8, double 2x8s. So you can go through, find double 2x8s, and then maybe 2x10s, we'll leave those. And then maybe when you get to the third header, you may want to make those double 2x12s or something like that as an example. So now that we've got that set up, you'll see that from 0 to 48, it'll use 2x8s. Between 48 and 96, it'll use 2x10s, and anything over 96 will use a 2x12. And that's the way you can go through and set that up. You can do the same thing with jacks and kings. You can change the quantity per different header length. Now, anchors and service holes. If you use automated manufacturing equipment like automated saws, you can automatically have information sent to where to drill holes for anchors and service holes. If you need to send that information, you can activate by clicking Add Anchors, select the type of anchor. Anchor is defaulted to a foundation anchor bolt, but if you have a different type of hold down, you can select that there. You can set up the offset from the ends and the spacing for the holes to be drilled for the anchor bolts. If you need to add service holes to the studs, you can add a single height or add spaces between the different heights if you want to add multiple holes in a stud. You can specify the diameter for the holes. Let's go ahead and hit cancel. I don't want to keep any of those changes. We'll leave it at default. Now, other layers may or may not have framing tools associated with them. To confirm, you can right click, select framing tools, and in this case, the siding doesn't have any, so it's blank. Now that we've gone through the wall dialog, I'm going to select OK to draw a couple of walls. I'll go in and draw some walls. Now, as I'm drawing a wall, each one of these walls has all those settings applied to it. So I'm going to hit V to confirm. So I can go through and select a wall and edit the framing tools for that specific wall. Right now, all of these walls that I have drawn have the exact same tools applied to them, but maybe you have a wall that has that requires different type of framing. Maybe there's more loading applied. Maybe you need a different stud on center spacing to handle the loading, or some other aspect that needs to be modified. To access the framing tools, there are several ways. You can select a wall, right click, go down to framing tools, and it'll open this framing tools specifically for that wall that was selected. And then you can go through and alter, the on-center spacing or whatever you need to modify to satisfy its requirements. Cancel. Another way is to select the wall, select framing tools from the ribbon at the top under the wall menu. That'll open up the framing tools for that specific wall. And another slightly longer way to select the wall, right click, properties, and then select the framing, right click, and select framing tools. Gets you back to the framing tools for that specific wall. And hit cancel. All these wall changes that we made in the dialog window apply to this project only. So if we start a new project, we're going to have the default settings. But you can make your own custom wall types and wall libraries. You can find that information on our online documentation. Go to Administration and Customization, Walls and Panels, and you'll find various articles on anything related to walls. You can also find some information in our user manual. Just go up to the upper right corner, select the blue circle, which is our help button. Select User Manual. In the User Manual, go down to Architectural Design, Walls, Wall Library, and you'll find more information regarding walls. Let's go ahead and close this out, and let's clear up this drawing. In the steel version of BD, the wall dialog is very similar to the wood version. The only differences are the wall types and wall libraries, and the wall framing tools. If we go to the layers, right click, select framing tools, you'll see some differences from the wood version. We still have a tool library in the framing tools, but we only have 3 tabs at the top: General, Openings, and NC Tooling. Under the General tab, we have similar framing detail, panel ID. We have exterior, interior, corner type details. You can modify the details by hitting the select button, similar to the wood version. We have different exterior corners and interior corners. Just select the diamond to set that detail. Panel edge details, free end details, similar to the wood version. You have horizontal bracing, horizontal blocking. You can change the material. You can select the top track type detail. That's hard to say. Top track L, top stud, and exterior track. To modify those, just hit the select button to the right and change the material. Select a different library and a different profile. You can set the studs, show the actual size, the quantity, spacing, stud start from, minor stud, center stud, and stud orientation. You can hit the select button to change the stud orientation, toe to heel, toe to toe, heel to toe. And you can also check this box to add studs under trusses. Under the Openings tab, similar to the wood version, we have 3 different header links: header 1, header 2, header 3. You can select the top header detail, opening header detail, and sill detail. Just click the button to the right. To select the detail, click on the diamond. You can check if you want caps with tracks for the jamb and the king. You can select the stud material for each one of these components and the track material. This header has a max length of 48. So from 0 to 48, it will use these settings. Between over 48 to 96, it will then use header number 2 settings. And then anything exceeding the length of 96 will use the header number 3 settings. At the bottom, you can enable cripple above, cripple below, stud below. And again, select the appropriate material. To the lower right, you can set the jamb orientation and the king orientation, and check the box to add rough bucks. Under the NC Tooling tab, You can set the parameters for the service holes. You can edit the service hole heights. For multiple heights, type in the value and add a space between each height. Check the box to add instead web holes, the start height and the spacing. You can add bottom track web holes, the offset and the spacing, and add bottom track web punches at door openings. You can also add a top track flange deflection slots and add a value for stud shortening. We'll run through some drawing exercises here so we can become familiar on the drawing process. To insert a wall, you can go up to the Modeling tab, select Wall, or you can right-click and select Insert Wall. That brings up the wall dialog window. Over in the wall libraries, let's hit Exterior Wall and select Frame Walls. And let's select a 2x6 exterior bearing horizontal wall for these exercises. Click on the wall and select OK. Now that we're in the Wall command, let's take a look at the status line down at the bottom of the window. In the lower left corner, you'll see that it now says Insert Wall, Select Point. We're in the Wall command, so it's prompting us on what to do next. If we were not in a command, it would say Select Element. So if you ever see Select Element in the lower left corner, you're not in a command. In the middle of the status bar, it gives a description of what we are drawing. So it's telling us that we have a wall. It's the exterior 2x6 bearing wall, and our reference line is set to the exterior at this time. Over on the right corner is the X and Y coordinates. Those are updating as you move your cursor. If we move it over to the crosshair, you can see that that's the 0, 0 origin point. So we'll want to pay attention to this as you're drawing walls. So we'll go through a couple of exercises on multiple ways to enter walls. We'll start out with a simple X and Y coordinate input. So let's go ahead and start. You can select any point. Click a point. Now you see that we have a wall segment linked to our cursor. Take a quick zoom in and take a look at what it looks like. So if we hold it up close to vertical, you'll see we have an arrow pointing to the left. So that's our exterior side. And you can tell by the amount of lines that are along the wall. We have a siding line and the sheathing line, and then the exterior wall. So we have more lines on the left side. Then we have a 2x6 framed wall with a center line in the middle. And then we have 2 more lines to the right, which is a drywall, the edge of the framing, and then the outside drywall line. The dotted line that you see is a constraint line. You can see the letter Y telling us that we're along the Y axis. If we move it over to the right, close to horizontal, now we get an X axis constraint. And then at a 45, anything that's at a 45, you'll see that we have a 45 constraint. And that just locks our wall in that direction. And that's activated by clicking the left mouse button. So if I click the left mouse button while I see the constraint on the screen, I left mouse clicked and it locked it. I'm going to do the same thing for the horizontal. If I left click while I see the X constraint, now it locks it. And then for the Y, or for the 45. And now it locks it in the 45. We can offset the wall in correlation to the reference line by using the wall placement settings. Right click to access some additional tools that are available to us. We'll go over these as we progress along this video. Right now we're set to placement wall outside. If we select placement wall middle, the wall will shift, and so now it is centered along our reference line. Our reference line isn't moving, but the wall is shifting based on our setting. If we right click and select our placement wall inside, now you see that the wall has shifted over, and now the inside edge of our framing is aligned to the reference line. We'll right click and go back to a wall outside. Let's go ahead and draw our first wall segment. We're going to add some walls using the X and Y coordinate system. So in this case, we want to go up in the vertical direction, which is the Y axis. So in that direction, we're going to go 20 feet in this example, but we don't want to go in the X direction. We just want to go straight vertical. So in the X, anytime we start typing our distances, it always populates the X field first. So we know we're not going to go in the X direction. So what I want to do is make sure that I don't have my constraint visible. If I do have my constraint visible when I start typing a number, it's going to expect to move in that distance. It thinks that we want to go in that direction, which we do, but we don't want to use a constraint in this exercise. We'll get into other ways of entering wall distances. So I'm going to move it over so we don't see the constraint. So now when I type in 0, it populates the X field. I'm going to hit Tab, and I'm going to type in 20 foot, and we want the foot mark. I'm going to hit Enter, and there's our first segment. Now we're going to go over to the right. Since we do want to go over in the X direction, I want to make sure I move off the constraint. Type in 20 feet and 0 for the Y, hit return. And now you see that it's added that segment. Now we're going to go in the negative Y direction. So if we type in 0 for the X, because we're not moving horizontally, type in negative 20 feet, and it's negative based on our relative point. Our point is right there at that corner. So anything that moves downward from that relative point is negative. We were going to the right, it's positive in the X, positive in the Y, negative in the X, and negative in the Y. So that's why we need to enter at negative 20. And from here, I'm just going to click our starting point. So that's how you use the X and Y coordinates to draw your walls. Zoom over and do the exact same thing, but this time let's use our constraints. So I'm going to click to begin. Now there's several ways that you can use the constraints. One is visually, like what we have on screen here. So you see the Y, I'll left click, and now I have it locked. And I can type in 20 feet and go in that direction. Another way to access a constraint is by right-clicking and selecting constraint. So here are the constraint keys. U is for the x-axis. I is for the y-axis. If we want to run it parallel to another wall, it's E, or perpendicular to a wall, it's T. I'm going to select the U key for the x-axis. It locks the wall segment in the x-axis. So now we just need to pull the wall over and type in 20 feet. And you see that it populates the distance field. Since we locked the constraint and we gave it a direction that we want to go, it just needed to know the distance. Hit return. We can do the same thing. You can just hit the I key so we know that the y-axis is the letter I. Pull it down in the direction that we want to go. In this case, it's towards the bottom. Type in 20 feet, and you see that it populates a distance field. Hit return. Now we'll just pick our start point. So that's how you use your constraints. Now there's one more tool that we can use. We'll go through and show you. Still using the constraints, but if we right click and select either, depends on which segment we're drawing, we can initially lock the horizontal or lock the vertical. We'll select lock cursor vertically, and now we'll type in 20 feet. And when we move over to the right, you'll notice that the constraint has already been set. So it alternates between vertical and horizontal. So now I'm going to go over 20 feet again and pull it down. And you see that it's locked again, 20 feet, and go to the start point. So that's a nice feature that will help to eliminate some keystrokes. Let's go ahead, zoom over. We'll draw one more structure incorporating both methods and adding some angles for a couple of bays. We're just going to click anywhere on the screen. So let's start with using the distance. So we're going to hit the I key to lock in the vertical, and we'll go up 20 feet. 20 feet for the distance. Let's go over to the right, hitting the U key and locking the horizontal constraint. And again, 20 feet. Now let's go up 10'6", but this time let's use the XY coordinate system. So we're going to make sure that we do not see our constraint. So we're going to move it over to remove the constraint symbol. Since we want to go horizontal, we're not going to move in the X direction. So we'll hit 0. And we want to go up 10'6" in the X, or in the Y. Hit return. Now let's use the X and Y coordinate system again to draw a wall 5'6.5" inches over to the right. We want to make sure that we do not see the constraint icon. Now in the X direction, we're going to type in 5'6". And to add a fraction, just hit space and let's go 1/2. You could also use 5'6.5". That will also work. In the Y, we're not moving in that direction, so that'll be 0. Hit return. Now let's say we want to add a segment at a 45. When we add a segment at a 45, using the 45-degree constraint, we need to know the length of that wall. So we're going to assume that it's 3 feet. We'll type in 3 feet. And because we are on the 45-degree constraint, it just wants to know the distance. So that segment is 3 feet long. And we can hit the U key, go over to the right, type in, let's say 5 feet. And now we use the 45-degree constraint again. Left click to lock it when we see the 45-degree icon. Pull it down and we'll make that 3 feet as well. And then we'll lock the X constraint, either hitting the U key or just clicking left mouse when you see the X icon. And we'll type in 5'6" and 1/2. For this next segment, we're going to run it perpendicular to this horizontal wall. We want this wall segment to match the wall here that we have on the left side. So I'm going to hit I to lock it in the Y axis. Because it's locked in the Y axis, it's not going to skew on us. So I'm going to zoom over and pick the inside corner, or the outside corner. And now that wall segment matches the wall on the left side. Let's say for the next segment, we have a bay and it's angled at something other than 45, let's say 30 degrees off this Y axis. And we know that the Y axis, it's 4 feet from this point. To add that in Vertex, we'll hit 0 to bring up the X axis, but since we do not want any value in the X axis, remove that 0. We'll type -4 feet because we're still moving downward. And now we need to put the angle. Since we know it's 30 degrees off this vertical direction, which would be 270. So if we were at looking at from this point, going to the right, it's 0, 90, 180, 270. So that would make it 300 or -60 if you're coming off the 0 direction. So we're going to type in 300 and hit enter. So now we have a wall segment that's from that point vertically down is 4 feet and it comes off at a 30-degree angle. For this wall, we're just going to come down, lock it in the vertical and type in, let's say 5 feet. For the next segment, we need to go back this direction. So again, it'll be 4 feet down from the Y, and from this Y axis, we want to go back 30 degrees. So we'll make sure that we are off the constraint icon, and again 0 for the X, and we'll remove it and type in -4 feet. We're still moving in a downward direction. This case vertically is 270, but we want to subtract the 30, so it'll be 240 is the angle. And now we have our bay at the 30-degree angles. Now we'll lock this into vertical, and we want this wall segment to match or be perpendicular to the end of this wall. So we're just going to move this down, zoom in closer, and select that point. And now we'll just go back and select that same point to close the wall. If it doesn't look like this and you have a wall end, looks like the wall just butts up to the other, then you didn't select the exact starting point. So you want to make sure that you zoom in. I'm going to hit escape. Now, if you want to confirm that this is correct, you can go over to the Verify Distance tool, click on it, and select your points. We'll select that point and this point, and you can see that we are 4 feet in that direction. So we know that we came off correctly. If you want to check your angle, you can go in and use the dimensioning tool and select angle, pick that point, and pick this point, and you can see that there it is at 30 degrees. I'll hit escape. We'll get into dimensions later. That's just one way if you want to verify your input. Now let's draw some interior walls. Go back up to the Modeling tab, select Walls, go into our Wall Libraries, expand Interior Wall Library, Framed Walls, and let's go ahead and start with a 2x4 interior bearing wall. Let's go with that one right there. Zoom in a little here. So when drawing walls, you can snap to points, or you can right click and set up the exact snap that you're looking for. Walls will automatically have a middle snap point. Hit escape. So if we move our cursor over to the middle of this wall, we have a yellow triangle which represents a midpoint. If we move over to a corner, you'll see a little dot there that represents an endpoint. I'm going to go back to the middle, left click, and now we have a wall. I'm going to hit the U key to lock the X constraint. And you see that our reference line is set to an edge of the wall. Now, it does point to the exterior, but since we're using an interior wall, it's the same on both sides, so it really doesn't matter too much which side's the exterior side. Other than if we were to panelize this wall, the label would be placed towards the top of this wall. So what we want to do next is center that wall on that reference line. So we'll right click, select the middle placement, and now you see that the wall is centered on the midpoint of our vertical exterior wall. Let's go ahead and run that wall horizontally. Let's just run it perpendicular to this wall here, and then we'll run it vertically and up against this exterior wall. And once we're done, you want to press the V key to confirm your selections. So I'm done adding walls. I can also right click and hit OK as well, which also is V for verify. Now what if we have a wall that we need to add a certain distance? Let's say 6 feet over from this corner. Well, we don't have a point to select. So what we need to do is set a reference point, and from that reference point, then we can offset our start point. To do that, we'll move our cursor over, we'll zoom in a little, hit this interior wall framing corner, get that yellow icon, and hit the letter Q on the keyboard. That will set our reference point. And now that we have our reference point set, we'll hit the letter U, since we want to go horizontally, and locate that wall at 6 feet over. So we'll just type in 6 feet. Similar to like drawing a wall, but we're not actually drawing a wall. We're just telling it that from our Q reference point, we want to start 6 feet over to the right. So we'll type in 6 feet. And it's filling in the distance field because we have the constraint set and we gave it a direction. It just needs to know the distance. So now we're drawing the start point of the wall 6 feet over from that corner. We'll lock it into vertical, and we'll just run it perpendicular to that wall, and V to confirm our entry. Let's try it one more time. Again, we'll go, let's say 6 feet again. This time we'll go off the center of this wall. Hue, lock it into horizontal, go over to the right, 6 feet. And this time I'm just going to go up, and let's say I want this wall to end in line with the middle of this wall. So I'll just pick that midpoint, and that's as far as I want to go, and hit V to confirm. Let's go ahead and add one more short wall segment off the midpoint of this wall. Lock it in horizontal, and let's just go over, let's say 3 feet for now. And V to confirm. We'll hit escape to end the wall segment. So let's get into editing some walls. So what if we want to change a wall? Let's say we want to change these 3 walls to non-bearing walls. We can double click the wall and select the 2x4 interior non-bearing wall and hit OK. Now that's a non-bearing wall. You can see the difference between the bearing wall and the non-bearing. Do the same with this one. Another way we can make the change is by selecting Pick down at the lower left corner. Select the wall that we want to match the properties from. Now you see that this wall has the same properties as the one we recently changed. I'm going to do this one more time. Double click that wall, select Pick, select the wall, and now we have 3 non-bearing walls. Now when you select a wall, you'll notice that you have 3 grip points. You got a middle grip point and 2 dots that represent the endpoints. If you grab the middle grip point of the wall, lock it into vertical, move it up, type in a distance or just stretch it up and pick a point, and you see that the walls at the corners, or the wall at the corner and the wall that's running perpendicular to it, have adjusted as well. Now if you select, let's say this wall, and you grab the end of the wall, you can stretch it and pull that up. Now if you try to do that with a wall that is connected, let's say this wall here, and you want to grab the end of this wall and pull it down, it doesn't allow that because it is linked to the other wall. There is a connection there between those 2 walls. So in order to do that, you'll need to hover over that dot, right click, and we need to disconnect the wall end. And then now that it's disconnected, now we can select it and pull the wall down. And now you see that it cleans up the connection that was there, and we now have a disconnected wall. If you select the wall and right click on the dot, you'll see we have several more editing tools. We have the move wall end, which is the same as just selecting the endpoint of a wall and stretching it or moving it up. We have move wall end with reference point. Basically, it's similar. You select the wall, select, let's say, a distance that you know, a reference point. You pick this point and then the next point, and whatever that length is, let's just say that was 3 feet, then this wall would extend up 3 feet. We also have create corner or butt. Let's select that. So if we select create corner or butt, we can click this wall. And because I selected that wall, it created a butt corner with that wall there. And let's say with this wall, we want to right click, right click, and we want to create a T connection. We'll click T connection and select this wall. And now it creates a connection there. You can also right click, and in the context menu, there's a cut wall command. So we can cut the wall. Say we want to fix this intersection here. We can click the wall. You have a break in the line there. The green wall segment is the one that's active. We can grab that, pull it down. And you'll notice though, this wall has not been cleaned up. So there, as opposed to this wall here, you can see how it's a much cleaner detail there. To fix that, right click on that dot and create T-corner and select this wall. And it cleans that up. And you can do the same thing on the opposite side. Right click, create T-corner. And now we have a nice clean connection there. Now if we want to take a look and see all our exterior wall locations, we can zoom out, go to modeling, wall, and select flip. You'll see all the blue arrows indicating the exterior side of the wall. So if you find that you have a wall that you need to fix, you can click on the blue arrow and you can see that it changed to the opposite side. Obviously that's incorrect, so we'll just click it back. It may come in handy when you start to panelize walls and your labels are in small rooms or in areas where you see some labels overlapping each other. You can, for example, maybe we want the label to be on this side, so we can click that arrow and now it's on the opposite side. We can hit escape to close. So I'm going to go over a few more tools that are available to you when drawing some walls. So we'll add a wall and we'll just select, that's fine, 2x4 interior non-bearing. As we're drawing a wall, if you right click, you'll see a series of icons on this pop-up menu. We'll just quickly go over each one. Use this icon to select another wall. So when you're drawing a wall, you can click on the icon, change it to a different wall. Right now we have a 2x4 wall. If we want to draw a 2x6 interior bearing, select it, hit OK. You can change the height of the wall. Select the Z icon. And you see that we have the 3D levels. We're drawing on the first floor, so the wall is linked to the first floor level. So the bottom of the wall is linked to the first floor level. The top of the wall is linked to the first ceiling. So if we zoom in, we can see where that is. There's our first floor. Here's our first ceiling. So the wall would be full height, 9 foot 1 1/8. If you needed the wall to offset from this first floor, you can add an offset value here. Same with the ceiling. If you wanted short from the ceiling, you can put in a negative offset. You have copy wall data from existing wall. Maybe you modified a wall and you have different on-center spacing for the framing. You want to copy those settings. You can click that icon. Let's say we want this wall here. Select that wall. Now those settings are applied to the wall that we're currently drawing. You have toggle open and closed wall. Right now, as we're drawing walls, you can see that we have an open-ended wall, so it's just segments, and we need to close it out manually. We right-click and select toggle open and closed. Now you can see that there's a automatic closing segment added. The toggle 2-point input, that just allows you to draw a wall as one segment and then it starts the process over. When we're drawing walls, it's continuous. This just allows you to draw one segment at a time. Select the reference line. We can set the reference line to any part of the wall. So if we select the wall, let's say we want to use the exterior or far edge of the drywall. Now when I'm drawing this wall, if I zoom in, you can see that my reference line is along the edge of the drywall. The mirror command will mirror the wall. Right now, if we look at this wall, we're drawing a 2x6 wall, and you see that we have siding, sheathing, and framing. And on this side, we had drywall and framing. If we right click, we flip or mirror the wall, you see now that it's been mirrored to the opposite side. So the reference point stayed the same. but the wall has been mirrored. Select rectangular walls to draw rectangles. Click on the wall. Oops. Now you see that we have a rectangle there. And you can put in your X and Y values. So if we have a, let's say a 30 foot by 20 foot, and there's our building. We've gone over the wall placements. We won't cover room creating walls, but it's a command that will automatically create rooms for you. It needs to be set up in your default settings. We've gone over the lock cursor horizontally and vertically. We have 2D and 3D representation. Unchecking them will turn off the visibility for that window. We have COA and ACC. COA is for coarse and ACC is for accurate representation. We recommend leaving the coarse representation on. Accurate representation may use a little bit more of your resources, and you may find that your system may slow down a little. Now let's move on to editing some walls in the 3D environment. Let's go ahead and draw a wall, 2x6, hit OK. So let's go ahead and hit F2 key to switch to the 3D. We'll zoom out and find our wall segment there. While in the 3D views, you can double click the wall and access the wall properties to adjust the height of the wall. Go to the wall framing layer, highlight the top height. So you want to change that to 144 inches. Hit OK. And you can see that the wall has adjusted. You can also alter the shape of the wall by clicking the grip points. If you select the middle grip point, you can adjust the height. Select the side middle point to adjust the wall length. You can also add additional points to alter the shape of the wall. Let's go to the middle grip point, right click, select insert point. Let's add a point right in the middle of the wall. Now we can select that point, lock it in the Z axis. So we'll hit the letter O on our keyboard, pull it up, and let's say we want to go 5 feet. So now we have a gable end wall. You can also cut the wall by right clicking, select cut wall, click somewhere along the wall. Now we've got it split into 2 separate wall segments. Now, in addition to splitting the wall, you can also merge the wall. Select both walls, right click, and select merge. You can also add a hole in the wall. Select the wall, go up to the wall menu, select hole. You can also edit the shape of the hole by selecting the points along the edge. Grab that middle point, stretch it down. Take a corner, lock it in the Z axis with the O key. And you can also delete points as well. Right click on a point, select delete point. Similar to how we edit the wall, we can also edit a layer. To select a layer, once the wall is selected, click again, and now you'll see that a portion of it has turned purple, and that's the selected layer. Right click. We're going to clip the wall layer, which is similar to cutting. Select a point. Lock the line vertically. V to confirm. Now we can select one of the split layers and edit that layer. Grab that grip point, lock it in the Z axis. Bring it down to, let's say, that midpoint. If I unselect, you can see now that we have the sheathing behind the siding layer exposed. Now the sheathing layer is still continuous. It has not been split. We only worked on the siding layer. If we want to edit the sheathing, we need to select the wall, select that layer, and now we can edit that layer. You can also add holes, so I'm going to right click, add a hole to this layer, click 2 points. Now if I hit escape, you can see that the sheathing layer has a hole in it, but it has not gone through the framing layer. We can edit the material of a layer. We can select the layer, right click, properties. You'll notice that the only layer that we can select is the siding layer. All the others have been disabled. So we'll click the horizontal siding. Let's say we want to change that to stone. We'll hit OK. Now you see that that layer has been updated to stone material. If you want to reset the wall back to its original state, select the wall, go up to the wall menu, down to change, select reload from library. Do you want to update the default heights? Yes, we'll go back to the default heights. And now our wall is back to its original state. Let's go ahead and go back to 2D, hit the F2 key. Now that we've gone through the different processes in adding walls in Vertex, we're going to delete these walls and learn how to insert a CAD drawing, and we'll use that as a template or overlay to help us draw walls in Vertex.